You're in big trouble, though, pal. I eat pieces of shit like you for breakfast.
You eat pieces of shit for breakfast?
No.
Hello, everybody. This is Breakfast of Champions Season 1, Episode 2. I'd like to introduce you to my co-host. His name is Parker. I don't know. What is your name? Is it John or is it Parker?
Either or.
Okay. I always called you Parker, but then I try to search for you on social media and I'm like, there's no Parker here. And then I'm like, oh yeah, it's Jay Parker.
That's by design.
From the Howard family.
But now people will be able to find me on social media. So
Sorry about that.
You threw off my plan.
My bad.
Back into the witness protection program.
Yeah, we can edit that. Anyway, it's been a week since last we've met. We've had lots of crazy, zany things happen in our lives. We'll get into that later. But I've done some traveling. I went to my grandmother's funeral this past week. Got to see my family in El Paso. And I, right off the top, I have to tell you about something that I've never heard of before. My father, who I thought I have this whole history of my dad down in my head. My father was a door-to-door donut salesman whenever he was a kid.
No way.
Yeah. So we're all kind of gathered around talking about the good memories, about everything that my grandmother did. And one of the things that she had done is she was one of the first OG entrepreneurs. Like when Tupperware came out, she was like, sign me up. And she was like a brownie leader and a Girl Scout leader. But one of the things that she did was she got her kids invested in this company called Spud Nuts. And
I know all about
Spud Nuts.
Nuts. I've tried to recreate Spud Nuts.
Okay. I love that you know Spud Nuts because my dad, whenever he was in high school, or not even high school, I think he was maybe in elementary, middle school, him and his two sisters would go to the local Spud Nuts drop-off center and they would pay 50 cents for the donut and then sell it for $1. So my dad was like, you always had to play that math game in your head. Like, how many do I want to sell versus if I don't sell them, how many do I want to carry? So take it away, Spud Nuts, man, that you know about it.
I mean, I don't know. I've done some research. But yeah, I tried to recreate them using russet potatoes, Yukon Gold potatoes, and even instant potatoes. And they were good, but I've never had a legit Spud Nut. I think that's more of a Midwestern thing. And also, if I remember correctly, I think it came out of the Great Depression because it was hard to get a lot of things, so they used what they had.
Sure.
I think the recipe is literally just potatoes, sugar, milk or water, and I don't even know if there's flour in it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then you just make it, fry it. But yeah, they're super famous, super well known.
Yeah, so I never knew that about my father until this week. So it's crazy that we started doing this Breakfast of Champions thing, reviewing donuts and stuff. And my dad's like, well, I was a donut salesman. I was like, what? Tell me all about this. I've never heard about this. So I did a little research on Spud Nuts myself. They were one of the first franchisees of donuts.
Oh, wow.
They started in, I think it was North Carolina or South Carolina. It was one of the Carolinas. They basically, just like you said, they had a different way of making donuts. They also were, before Krispy Kreme and the hot and fresh light, Spud Nuts is famous because they like to serve their donuts warm because the owner liked his donuts warm. And so as they spread about the country, there's some tax evasion and fraud and ownership changes. And
as there is.
Yeah. So, but they actually had, I think we read it right, they were selling 4 or 5 million donuts a year at one point. Most of it through their franchises, most of it from door-to-door salesmen from younger people. But I thought that was interesting. A good way to start off the show. Tribute to my grandmother, and also just to shout out my dad because he was a donut door-to-door salesman for Spud Nuts in El Paso, Texas. So.
The OG donut daddy, if you would.
There you go. He's going to come for his name. Speaking of Instagram.
I released my handle so he can have it back.
Right. Perfect. So I hope you've been well. Anybody that's out there listening to this, we'd like to welcome you to the show. Again, this is a podcast about breakfast foods and violence. Last episode, we discussed the kind of underwhelming Shipley's donuts we had. They fell flat, pun intended. So
I've actually been thinking about them almost every day since we ate them and how disappointing they were.
Yeah.
Somebody actually at one of my jobs, the manager was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have a store meeting, and I think I'm gonna get Shipley's donuts for the crew." And I was like, "Please don't
skip that part."
Yeah. Anybody else? I was like, I know a really good donut shop. I know a few good donut shops, but I know a really good donut shop, especially if corporate's paying for it. Like,
yeah,
let's kick some business back.
Right, for sure. Speaking of this really good donut shop, we're moving away from the welcoming portion, and let's just go right into our donut portion. I'm looking at one of the pinkest boxes I've ever seen when it comes to donuts. When you think of donuts, you think of like the traditional white, maybe some logos on it, but this is straight up Pepto-Bismol pink. So tell us a little bit about this box. Did you design this box?
I did not design the box, but I really pushed for the pink. And
I love it.
It took me a little while to find the right one. I talked to some different manufacturers, and this one actually is like just mass produced, order it online. And then the design that's on it is a stamp, but the lady who created it, her name is Julie Beal. She does really awesome graphic design. She's done all the Spiral Diner stuff, and she did all the Dreamboat stuff. Yeah,
this is a perfect little stamp here. I'm looking at you. You just take it away. Describe it here. This is a donut, but what's inside the donut?
So I'll give you some lore on this.
Yeah, I'd love it.
So it's a donut, but inside the hole is a bunny wearing a sailor's hat with a scoop of ice cream. Again, this is Dreamboat Donuts and Scoops. So we've got the donut is the vessel or the boat. You got your bunny with the sailor hat on, and then you got the ice cream cone. So you get the whole name in one little image. But fun fact is the bunny's name, which most people don't know this, is Pazuzu.
Okay. Pazuzu. That sounds familiar.
So Pazuzu is an ancient Mesopotamian god or demon. I think maybe demon, not god.
Okay.
If you've seen the movie The Exorcist, Pazuzu is the one who is the statue and all that. But,
got it. That's why it sounds familiar.
Linda Blair from The Exorcist is vegan and super into like dog rescue stuff. So the goal was name the bunny Pazuzu so that Linda Blair will show up and eat some donuts with us.
That's a perfect logo. Perfect story. We are discussing Dreamboat Donuts. This is a local to Fort Worth area, Texas area donut shop that we've had the pleasure of having many times because Parker helped create, launch, and run the shop for quite some time. And so we are lucky and blessed and thankful to have some donuts. I haven't even peeked to see what he picked. But like I said, this box just needed to be talked about because you don't see a pink donut box quite often. So Parker hit the nail right on the head with that. You're already looking at like exclusivity. I don't know how to say that word. Exclusiveness, differentness, stand out. You know, if somebody came to the office, like a regular 9 to 5, and they were like, I brought some donuts and put this box in front of me, I'd know that what's inside is not fall
It's not
apart.
Shipley's.
Shipley's Donuts. This is Dreamboat. So I'm going to open the box. What's in the box? Oh my God. So for those of you, we are not video just yet. We're still working on the deets of that. We could be, but just not yet. This is for just me and Parker here. So I'm just looking at 4 of some of the most amazing donuts that I've seen in quite some time. They're not falling down. They are standing straight up, 10 toes down like Drake. They've got their head held high. They are.
Does Drake have his head held high right now?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, we're not going to get into that. Speaking of violence, there's some violent stuff going on in the rap world right now if you follow any of that. But so I've got classic glazed.
I went by the tier that we went with last week.
Perfect. So we've got classic glazed. We've got the Homer-esque strawberry with sprinkles. We've got is that the old fashioned over there with the chocolate or the cake donut?
Yes.
Yeah,
so
cake
blueberry
donut.
cake donut.
Oh, blueberry cake
And
donut.
so it's super blue and lumpy like that because it has real blueberries.
Correct. Not the can that we talked about
Yeah.
not the nast of the last week. So, and then this is the famous JJ donut. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So We're going to talk about the grading scale. We had 6 donut holes, 0 to 6 donut holes last time. We can change that. This is not, this is not like set in stone forever. So we did talk about kind of like store specific. We don't really care for like the chain so much. We're more like mom and pop or artisanal donuts, if you will. So is this, you want to tell us about, so you said last time you had like hundreds of donut recipes. Is that right?
Yeah, so I actually I created a 25-page document from the first day I started making donuts. And
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so there is every version of this recipe, like the dough recipe and other dough recipes that had not seen the light of day, along with all the different frostings and everything. And all of that is now, Dreamboat's property, and they're continuing to make cool stuff with Danny, who works there. She made a donut last week that had a tiny cupcake in the middle. It was like a funfetti donut with a funfetti cupcake in it. So yeah, they're still innovating and creating and doing all kinds of cool stuff.
And just for some behind the scenes, Parker and I used to play an emotional hardcore band called Unspell, and at the same time that we were kind of fleshing out some songs and some record stuff, he was in the process of creating these donuts. So he would literally come to work, and as they were setting up or he would come to practice as they were setting up the shop, and he would just be dog dead tired. And I could just see the hard work that he put into these donuts. I saw it not only in the result of these donuts, but also just like in how he lives his life. Parker has put all of his heart and soul into these donuts. You can taste it. You can see it. Please go visit Dreamboat. They are an amazing staple of the Magnolia neighborhood, the near South Side neighborhood. They are family members with Spiral. So anybody with any like dietary restrictions or any vegans or vegetarians in your life, and even if you're not vegan or vegetarian, just stop by and grab a donut. They look amazing. They taste amazing. Which one do you want to jump right into?
I think we should start with the glaze. That's like the base one.
Yeah, base layer.
I'm gonna let you dig in, and I can just kind of talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a piece of this glaze here.
Yeah. So the big thing with Dreamboat is also all of the donuts are made with organic ingredients. So the flour, the sugar, the milk, like most of the ingredients are organic. The glaze, that was like a big part of it, was making sure that the glaze was just right. The powdered sugar in it's all organic. Just high quality ingredients. Also with like the proof and the rise, where you can like see in this, I'm looking at it. It's got like those air pockets. It springs back. It's slowly springing back right now, but it does do a 24-hour cold rise. So after it's made, it sits and rises for 24 hours before it is proofed and fried.
I just had my bite. That's terrific. It's really, really dense. It's not super sweet. Question. You mentioned ingredients and how organic and quality and that sort of stuff. What is the price point for your glazed donut?
$2.99.
See, there you go. So I was just looking the other day about DoorDash, just kind of getting, one of those things where you're like, oh, I'm really hungry. I wish I could have, donuts, but I was at work, so I couldn't leave. So I started looking, and several of the donut chains have 4-packs, 6-packs that you can buy. And I think if you're going to spend about $2 on a donut, you might as well just spend that extra little bit for the quality, because you can tell right away as soon as you bit into that donut, it kind of bites you back a little bit. There's like no like you said last time, as soon as you bit into that Shipley's, it kind of fell and like crumbled, and you're like, wait, where did the donut go?
Yeah.
But with this donut, you're getting your mouth's worth. It tastes great, not overly sweet. The icing, the glaze, it's not as flaky and crumbly. It stays onto the donut really well, and it's not super thick, and it doesn't leave your hands very sticky, but it is a really, really good donut. It's a great job on that one. I'm going to dig into the Homer next. Is that what you guys are calling it officially, or you can't really do that because other chains have done that?
Yeah, there are other chains that have done that. And actually, when I was doing research for names, the chain that I was so bummed they beat me to the punch is Donut Friend in LA. Donut Friend is an all vegan chain in LA, and they're all named after songs or bands.
Perfect.
Like, there's a Jimmy Eat World donut. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like a Sunny Day Real Estate. It's all, we could look at that menu one day. And
We're going to.
Yeah,
we're going to have to.
We
might have to take a field trip.
Yeah. No. Whenever episode 50, when we've got some Patreon money coming in, we'll fly out to LA for a day. So yeah, it's just the strawberry frosted donut. This one has sprinkles on it.
Perfect. I'm going to take a quick bite into that. You can tell us, did you go through many sprinkles, or did you just like, is there only one standard vegan sprinkle that you can use?
Fun thing about sprinkles, not all sprinkles are vegan. They use shellac, or it has different names, but it's basically crushed up beetles, and it's what gives it that shiny, crunchy texture. Think about that next time you're eating a donut. But no, again, Spiral Diner being around for so long and having a bakery, it was very easy to know where to get sprinkles. Like, we had a supplier that we used, and they've got all kinds of different fun sprinkles, but we just went with a classic Jimmy sprinkle. And so that's the exact reaction I wanted when I made this donut. Man. Because to me, the strawberry sprinkle donut is the perfect classic donut. But everywhere, like we saw last week with Shipley's, they don't put enough flavor in it. It's a lot of extracts, and it just kind of dies on your tongue. This is real organic strawberries that are in the frosting.
And you can taste it, boy. It is not a fake strawberry. It is a perfectly sweet, composite of like strawberry. It's almost like a jam taste almost, but it doesn't look like it at all. It looks like a sweet strawberry, pinky frosting. Yeah. Again, we're talking about Dreamboat Donuts. These are vegan donuts. These don't, quote unquote, taste vegan. I know that's like, you don't look Mexican.
It's 2024
because I'm Mexican, but these donuts don't taste vegan. So for all of you old heads out there that think that like vegan means disgusting or vegan means something that it doesn't, vegan is not a bad word. Vegan is not, does not mean gross or does not mean bad tasting. Vegan oftentimes means high quality. Vegan oftentimes means care, thought, process into what they're doing. And you can definitely tell if I gave this donut to, like, let's say your every average day kid, they would love how sweet it is, but they're not getting the fact that it's actually the strawberry flavor and not the sweetness. And I think that's some things that sometimes we forget, that like fruit itself can be really freaking sweet depending on when you catch it. If it's super ripe, like a banana that has a lot of brown pockets, and if you throw that thing in a smoothie, all of a sudden you think you have like sugar in your smoothie, but it's like nature sugar. And this is a great example of, fruit being sweet and also tasty. And that's another thing. It doesn't taste artificial. It doesn't taste like somebody just like slapped together a strawberry or just a regular frosting and threw some pink dye in it. So again, great job. Amazing job on that. Perfect.
Thank you.
I'm going to have a sip of this drink here. I've never tried it before. This is something that got brought to my attention via all of the adult shops that I attend. Did you hear that? Excuse me. Did you hear that crack?
Cracking a cold one.
Cracking a cold one. So this is a product called Jim Weed. We don't endorse it yet. We may. We never know. It's an adaptogen energy drink. 0 sugar. Mine is watermelon flavored. So
I've got pear pineapple.
I see these things everywhere.
Yeah, I had a friend, actually Danny, who runs Dreamboat. She texted me about these, and then I started seeing them everywhere. I'll let you take a sip.
I'm going to take a sip.
So this Jim Weed, it has 300 milligrams of ashwagandha. That's going to help you kind of relax and calm down. 200 milligrams of caffeine is going to do the opposite of that. 100 milligrams of lion's mane. That's going to make your synapses fire real nice. 100 milligrams of L-theanine, which I think also is going to help you like with relaxation. And then it's vegan and non-GMO, just like these donuts.
Wow. What a great pairing. This is very light. It's not super carbonated like a Topo where you want to like, oh my God, my senses are on fire.
Yeah,
it's like, when you sip a Topo and it's like TV static running through your head.
Yes.
It's not like that at all. It is a very mild kind of carbonation to it. Very good. Not a lot of aftertaste to it. You'd think with zero sugar and all of the extras that you just talked about, there would be kind of like a chemical-y aftertaste, but it actually tastes great.
Yeah, no, I've got the pear pineapple, and it's like it's almost like a flat tapache is what it tastes like. It's not syrupy. It doesn't like cling to your mouth. After last week's Mountain Dew, I felt so terrible that I was like, we got to do something different this week. As much as I love Mountain Dew, we either need to do Diet Dew or we got to do something else. And
faux show.
I stopped at Quick Trip to get some napkins because I knew that we would need them.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man,
big
I'm going to grab
activity. Yeah, I've seen these at QT, at 7-Eleven, at HEB, at something that just has the name weed in it.
Especially in Texas.
Yeah.
And at HEB,
exactly.
the most Texas of grocery stores.
You would think that would just be like, we're not carrying that around here. But I think the bright colors help. I think that, like you said, it's 2024 and almost everybody we know is probably smoking weed or taking weed in some form or fashion. The name weed is so like propaganda to begin with. But anyways, thank you for bringing those. Do you want to, are you partial to this? You can't really grade Dreamboat, or can you? Do you think you can grade Dreamboat?
I don't want to.
Don't want to grade it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So last time we talked about sweetness. From a scale of 0 to 6, I'm going to give it a 5. It is right up there with probably some of the best donuts that I've ever had. A sweetness scale, it is. And then I thought about this last time. You want the sweetness to be a high level on the scale, not in terms of it's super sweet, 5 out of 6 sweet. Our sweetness scale means the right level of kind of balance. So if we give you a 0 on the sweetness scale, it's either because it's not sweet enough or it's overtly sweet. If we give you a 5 or 6 on the sweetness scale, that means that your balance is perfect. It's not too sweet. It's just the right amount of sweetness. And I think that Dreamboat nails it on the sweetness. So 5 out of 6 on the sweetness. As far as the thickness, the rise, the yeast, that bounce back that we talked about, you can't beat it. 6 out of 6. I've never seen a donut bounce back the way that this donut is, hold up. Again, we've probably cracked this. Last time we cracked the other donuts, by now they've fallen, they've melted. Again, Drake, 10 toes down, head held high. This strawberry donut right here is perfect. I love that. So we had sweetness, we had thickness, with maybe like overall presentation.
Yeah, I think overall presentation is
okay. Again, we started off with the fact that this box is pink. You're not going to miss it. I want to take a picture of this JJ donut before I devour it. That's the one reason I haven't just dove right into it. Again, JJ is a tribute to a local artist and friend, Jeremy Joel. It's got peanut butter. It's got peanuts. It's got chocolate frosting. It's got Oreo cookie crumbles on it. What else could you ask for in a donut?
It's the perfect donut.
It really
got
is.
the saltiness from the peanut butter and the peanut. It's got the sweetness from the ganache and the Oreo pieces. Yeah, it's a solid donut.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Dreamboat Donuts. I'm gonna give y'all again 5.5 out of 6. I don't think that I've ever seen outside of like your really super well known like over the top donut presentations. These donuts are huge. Again, so we talked about quality of ingredients. We talked about what you're getting inside of this donut. You're getting something you can feel good about. Environmentally, consciously, spiritually, you can feel great about these donuts, but also that you're getting value for your donut. These donuts are huge. They're super thick. If you can eat like 3 or 4 of these donuts, you are a massive person that has way more, eating power than I do. I'd really love to see some of those competitive eaters take down some of these donuts because they're just like so big and thick and righteous that it probably would be very cool to see. So
I've also
5.5
been described that way.
6. That's what she describes me as. So thank you again to the people of Dreamboat Donuts. Shout out. Go see them. They are right off Magnolia on
6th Avenue in the PS 1200.
Yeah, and they've got a cool spaceship like building with big glass windows. You cannot miss them. They've got big, cool, kawaii looking pictures in the front of their store. And thank you very much to them and their donuts. And may their legacy continue forever and ever and ever in Fort Worth because they are needed. You can grab Krispy Kreme. You can grab whatever chain donut you want in any city in the world. but you're not going to find Dreamboat Donuts anywhere but Fort Worth, Texas, and we're all about that action. So go see them. We love them. And thank you, Parker. I know it's kind of hard for you to be a little biased and partial since you created these were your babies for quite some time, and now you've left that. But their legacy has continued, and we're glad to see them, and we wanted to give them a shout out and a review. Legit, no bias on my end. I would tell Parker, I'd be like, look, man, I've told him before, hey, you're playing the wrong notes, like straight up and down.
Straight up. Hey, you suck at playing
I've never said suck, but you are straight up playing the wrong notes. But I would never lie about donuts. That's sacred in my book, and he's really hit the nail on the head. So I've done quite some talking and some eating. So we're gonna talk about moving on. We're going to talk a little bit about our lives personally. We talked about kind of like our kids and like our jobs and that sort of thing. I really wanted to delve into the music part of our lives because music is such a big part of our lives. It isn't a big part of the podcast when it comes to themes and what we're going to be talking about going forward. But I just have a feeling that the people that are going to maybe come and guest on the podcast, a lot of the people that we're going to talk about and mention in our stories are going to be kind of interwoven throughout our musical life. So I just thought maybe we could kind of give a rundown of bands that we've been in, maybe some cool shows that we've played in, maybe some bands that we love, so that way people can kind of get an insight, because I know that you and I just showed you some music before we got started.
Yeah.
I'm constantly listening to stuff, and you were constantly reminding me of stuff that was like, oh yeah, I completely forgot how great like Converge and KFN and stuff like that is. Simply by the fact, like Mall Walker shirt on today, great shirt. We both have that shirt.
Love that band. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Yeah. Sadly, R.I.P. So yeah, I'll let me ask you, what was the first band you were ever in?
The first band I ever played a show in was a band called Heinous Genetics.
Perfect.
We started in 2006, I believe, but our first show wasn't until 2007. That band was pretty cool. Like, we played a show at 1919 Hemp Hill, our first show, which I'd been going there for
R.I.P.?
years. Oh, very R.I.P.
Oh man, so much R.I.P. in the show.
Yeah. But yeah, so we played our first show there with Steeples from Oklahoma City and Damazumari from Tulsa, and then Trifle Tower from DFW.
What a great first show.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was so cool.
Usually first shows are like, I'm playing in the backyard.
Yeah.
I played at my grandma's house.
But we ended up getting put on another show in Oklahoma City like a week later because of the friends we made there. And I'm still friends with almost all of those dudes today. And so, yeah, that was cool. It was like, oh, this is my first band, and the second show we're playing is out of town. And we ended up playing more out of town shows than we played in town.
Successful.
Yeah. So that was
Straight
cool.
up.
We were very like stubbornly DIY. We printed all of our own shirts. This was CDR times. We burned all of our CDs. I did I would make like lino cuts to put on the CD covers. So we were very like adamantly DIY, almost to a fault, because we're just like, fuck everyone else. This is what we're doing.
Yeah. But that's good and bad in both ways. We know that just from life experience. So did you always play bass? Or you have always been a bass player?
I was the vocalist of that band.
Ooh. Even more lore coming to
Yeah, so I was a vocalist of that band, and then we ended up like kind of taking a hiatus, and then me and Travis is one of my best friends, he started this band called Sinister Ghost, which was kind of the next step in Heinous Genetics.
Okay.
And he had recorded a demo. We got our friends together. Basically, we knew we only had like 3 months to do this band. Because our friend Joe, who was playing like synth and keyboard, he was moving to Austin at the end of the summer. Matt, who was our drummer, was moving back to Oklahoma City after the summer. And Cameron, who played guitar in that band, I think he might have still been in high school at the time. We were all like 19, and I think he was like 17. But so we knew like, hey, we have a limited time where everybody's in town. Let's do as much as we can. And we booked a tour, hit the road, had some super weird, interesting times on the road in the Midwest. It was super cool, very like fast, made lots of friends, played with a lot of cool bands, and we tried and crammed as much as possible into that like 3-month period, and then we were done, and that was it.
Yeah.
So
imagine if you had the opposite mindset of like 3 months.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a bummer. And then just didn't do anything. But now you have like these lifetime memories of like cramming it all in and just getting it all in. And that's such a cool thing, especially when it comes to like DIY stuff. Oftentimes, one of the cons of DIY, especially in the punk and hardcore scene, is that you can kind of get into your own headspace and your own bubble. And you are so focused on a project, or you're so focused on your band, that you don't step out and you don't play those shows and you don't, meet with those people or do those things that, because you're so focused on getting everything done and everybody's got a task. But that's great to hear that you guys had that approach of like, okay, we've got 3 months, let's make the most of it and get it all in. So I love that.
Yeah.
What was the most favorite band that you ever played in?
I mean, honestly, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, probably Unspell. It was the most fulfilling. It taught me the most.
Sure.
Because again, so Heinous Genetics, Sinister Ghost, I played. I was.
I didn't mean to stop your train. I was just kind of throwing questions to you.
But no, so those two bands I was a vocalist in. The next band I played in after that, I played bass, and then I continued playing bass. But Unspell definitely taught me the most as far as being a musician, which I chalk that up to you.
Thank you.
Because I have always, in all the bands I've played bass in, it's always been more of a jackhammer, and Unspell had a lot of like quiet parts or parts to slow down, and there were space between the notes, which is not something I was used to or something I was comfortable playing.
Sure. That was a fun time for us. And it's weird that we're talking bass. Whenever we started Unspell, I was like, I'm going to play the bass in a hardcore band because I've never done it before. Bass has always been such, I think that like I admire bass playing and bassists a lot, as well as drummers, because it's one of those things where like, I feel like I would never, I've been here 40 years and I'm barely any good on the guitar. So I can only imagine how long it would take me for my brain to compute how drums work. I just can't do it. Like my left foot, right foot, left hand, right hand. It's like, I wind up just playing 4, 4, 4, 4, you know what I mean? All the time. So, whenever, like, I guess around the time that when Unspell started, there was a lot of like funky dance music that Jordan and I listened to, in particular, like Tame Impala and Pond and Tori Moi, and it always had like that kind of like funky moving bass line. And I always thought that between that and then I saw the I'm not familiar with anybody in American football's name except for Mike Kinsella, but the bass player from American football, we saw them on the third LP tour, and I just saw him really, really like using, instead of just using one string, which I mean, hardcore punk bands, and you use one string at a time mostly.
Go-to is just an open E string.
Right. I just saw him moving from like, so if you're looking at a bass fretboard, or if you're looking at a bass strings, you have your thinnest string on the bottom and your thickest string on the top. I just saw him moving from like 2, 3, and the second string, third string, and fourth string. He would just kind of move up in like a pyramid pattern or like a little scale pattern, and he would do it in varying ways. It'd be like ding, 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 like, and not like a jazzy kind of. It would just be like almost like moving notes, and it like between that and like Tame Impala and stuff, I just wanted to kind of like bring some of that to Unspell, and so that's kind of where some of those like non-hardcore kind of things come from. But also, like, if you listen to a lot of like Mineral and Braid and stuff like that, that's kind of where some of that came to. So back to your musical journey. So you had a couple of bands that you were a vocalist in, then you started playing the bass, and you left off. Where were you at there?
So Sinister Ghost had just finished up. Our last show, I don't even think I played with them, was in San Antonio in somebody's apartment. It was like a crusty screamo show. And also, Sinister Ghost was like a Scrams band. And Orchid is one of my favorite bands, and that was like a big influence on that band. So after that was like 2008, probably like August 2008. I was like, I'm kind of done with music, and life was kind of going in different directions. And then one of my friends was like, oh, hey, I know this band that needs a bass player. And this is early 2009. I was like, okay, what are they called? And he's like, oh, they're called Coin Return. They sound like Infest meets Agnostic Front. I was like, okay, that sounds cool. I'll check that out.
Right.
And so I went over to this dude's house in the Mid-Cities, and he was the drummer. His name's Matt. And so I met him, and then the guitar player was this dude named Cody, and the vocalist is this guy named Josh. And like they had a bunch of songs written, so they started showing me the songs. I was like, all right, this is cool. It's not exactly what I had envisioned, but it seems pretty cool. Like, let's keep checking this out. And then so we went and we recorded like a 5-song demo and played some shows, and we were getting like really good reactions. Like, I'd never had people react to my music that way. And I say my music, I didn't write any of this. So I was like, people were just like beating the shit out of each other when we would play. And I'd never experienced that. Again, I'd been playing in like screamo bands. And but I've always loved hardcore and punk and all that stuff. So playing in a hardcore band, watching kids just annihilate each other, I was like, all right, this is cool. And then
Breakfast foods and violence.
Exactly. And then so we started like getting a little bit of a following. This is also like around the same time Power Trip is coming up. Those are all like homies.
R.I.P.
No. Well, Riley, R.I.P.
I know. I've seen the show updates.
Yeah.
But he's sitting on your shoulder right now like an angel, by the way, in my view.
Yeah.
He's right there.
We've got a Stony Wayne Bass original Riley artwork in the space we're in.
Yeah. And just the way that Parker's sitting, it literally looks like Riley's like sitting over him like an angel. Anyway. Power Trip's coming out around this time?
Yeah, so Power Trip has been around for like a year or two. They're all friends, so we've been playing shows with them.
Mm-hmm.
We record this demo, and I'm talking with my friend Sherwin, and he's like, oh, I'm starting up a label. I'm going to put out the Power Trip demo. Send me that demo that you guys have. And so we send it to him, and he's like, which listening to this demo now, it's like, how did anyone hear anything good out of this?
Yeah.
But he's like, yo, this is cool. Like, if you guys record something real, like, hit me up. I was like, all right. So we went into the studio with this dude named Daniel Schmuck. Daniel was in the band End Times, which also shared members with Human Error. He's got a new band that is so sick. They're called Myth Carver. They are a like new wave of heavy metal band.
Check it out.
They just released a single like 2 days ago on Spotify.
Okay.
Members of Power Trip, members of I'm gonna mess this up. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Anyways, I'll look it up and I'll get back to you on that. But
okay.
Record with Daniel. Daniel is super awesome. He makes us sound even meaner than we actually are. And so we sent it off to Sherwin. Sherwin's like, yo, let's put this on vinyl. So he puts out the Power Trip demo as his first release on Withdrawal Records, and then he puts out Human Error's Beyond the Wasteland. Oh yeah, we changed our name, by the way, because Coin Return is named after a AFI song. We're also all big AFI fans, but we're like, this doesn't really fit our sound. We were starting to like implement like some death metal stuff and like heavier stuff. And so we're like, we need a better name. And Cody came up with Human Error. So we changed our name to Human Error. Sherwin pressed the 7-inch for us. And then we just started playing shows. Like our record release show was also Power Trip's first tour kickoff show. Or it might not have been their first tour, but it was one of their early tours. And they like, we played at this place called the Alamo, which the owner was like literally smoking meth in the back while we played. Perfect. Super sketchy West Side venue off of Camp Bowie and like Las Vegas Trail. You know. So yeah, we played that. We were pressed up against our amps the whole time because there were so many people there. It was super cool. I got to do so many cool things with that band. We probably the best show I ever played. Most wild show, not best, but most wild show. We played with Title Fight in a house in Austin, Texas in like 2011. The house was packed out, and you just like couldn't move because of how many people were there.
Okay, if you are just kind of listening to this podcast casually, and you didn't hear what Parker just said, we're gonna reset. He just said that in some of the bands that he's played in, not in some of the in a band that he played in, he got to play a show with Title Fight. He got to play a show with Power Trip. So if you don't know Title Fight, you don't know Power Trip, you must stop this podcast. You must go to your your closest independent record store and find Power Trip, find Title Fight. Please do not stream these bands. They need your money. They need your support. So go to an independent record store. Sorry, not a label, record store. Find some old Power Trip records, find some Title Fight records, Discogs, and really just bless yourself with music that actually matters and counts. Because those two bands, I know personally in my life have just changed the way that I listen to music, have changed the way that I make music, have changed the way that I care about music. They really, I mean, they mean a lot to me. They've, so stop what you're doing. If you don't know either of those bands, go grab you a 6-pack of donuts from somewhere, put on Shed, grab something to cry with, cause you're going to cry, and just really get into that. So, I'm blessed to be in your presence. You are, in my mind, you're rock royalty, just because you've been in the same room as these bands. So, I know we were casually talking about our music lives, but these are huge bands to me. So we just had to kind of reset there for a second and kind of bring that up. So you've played with Title Fight, you've played with Power Trip. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, we played. It's funny, looking back, Full of Hell is another band that they're massive now, but I was booking them to play to 10 to 20 people when Human Error was starting out, and thinking back, oh yeah, I saw Power Trip and Harm's Way play at 1919 on a cold December night, and there were 10 people there.
Right. And now, if you tried to go to a Power Trip show, you probably couldn't get in.
Show.
Yeah, I mean,
it's crazy thinking back. A lot of these bands are now kind of legendary of our time. So it's cool. Human Error, we had a lot of stuff going on in our personal lives, so we didn't tour as much as we wanted to. We hadn't really figured out. We're all in our early 20s, the things that you do in your early 20s, between the bad decisions, the relationship issues, stuff like that.
Sure.
It just Human
Money
Error
issues.
Yeah, Human Error was not poised to do a whole lot. But the music we put out was really cool. Matt from Human Error, he actually now plays drums in Frozen Soul. And
817 represent.
I believe they were the first death metal band to play at Red Rocks.
I've heard this.
Yeah. So and that was just a few weeks ago. So yeah, Matt from Human Error is in Frozen Soul. Josh, who is the singer, his brother's Chad from Frozen Soul.
He's a Chad, or
his name is Chad. He's
okay.
He's at the Chad.
He's the Chad.
And so yeah, seeing those dudes doing all the cool stuff with Frozen Soul is awesome. Travis that played in Human Error, he's doing cool music. He and I have maybe been talking about doing something new, so we'll see what happens with that. He also toured on Power Trip for a little bit when I want to say European tour, maybe a Northeast tour, but he filled in for them here and there. We've got a lot of cool stories. And then Cody, I don't know where Cody's at. Cody's off. I hope he's good wherever he is.
All good things.
Yeah. Nothing but love for everybody. We did a lot of cool stuff. Cody wrote all of those songs. So yeah, I've heard that he has been doing well, so I'm glad to hear that. I'm trying to think what else to talk about.
After that band?
I did one show with a band called Lech.
Oh.
We put out a tape. It was 2013. So I left Human Error, and actually they continued on. They put out a split and an LP after I left the band. I still helped with some design stuff and booking. But my life was kind of going more towards the food side of things.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do both.
Did you have kids at the time or no?
Yes.
Okay. So again, complications.
Yeah. Kids, work. I was also finishing school.
How do you tell a child, hey, daddy's going on tour?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, Aiden is my 14-year-old son. He and I were actually talking about all of this stuff the other day, and oh man, you could be touring the world and famous. Yeah, do you want me gone 300 days a year? And he's like, no. I was like, that's why I kind of stepped back from music. But yeah, so
do you want a dad?
Yeah. So we
Or do you want a Drake?
No.
He reaches his ugly head again. Violence.
But so yeah, I also Human Error was the most violent band I played, and I've got lots of violent stories from that band. We had a tally of how many broken noses we had at our shows. I've been covered in other people's blood while we've played. It was the most violent band I played in. So yeah, after that I played in Lech. That was with some friends that you know, from who worked at Evoca. Kyle, Tad, and L.
Mm-hmm.
And
I know all of these great people.
Yeah, so we recorded a demo. This was again 2013. This was right on the verge of Wiccans blowing up nationally. Hoax was really big. All of the Youth Attack records, Mysterious Guy hardcore stuff, was really popular. So that's kind of what these dudes were into, and I was into all that shit. So I was like, all right, cool. Played bass with them, recorded this demo. I had a tape label at the time called You Can't Win.
You still do.
Oh yeah, it never died. It's just been on hiatus for a decade. But yeah, so we put out 25 copies of our demo. Tad did all of the design work. Tad's also doing really cool design stuff now for
sure
the electronic music scene. The shit Tad's doing is awesome.
Every single poster I've seen Tad put out is just I can't believe I know this person in real life.
He's so talented.
Yeah.
And he did all one of the best layouts of any music I've ever released, and he did all of it back in 2013.
Also, just a genuinely sweet human being.
Absolutely,
one of the best every single
dudes.
time I've ever interacted with them, just a hug, a smile, a genuine ask how you're doing, and so just big shout out to Tad. Love them.
Love Tad. I hope you hear this, Tad. So yeah, he did that layout. We made the tapes. I had a tape duplicator, so we did 25 super fast. Put the tapes together literally as we're about to go to the show. But what we did is my friend Jeremy, he had this great idea. He's like, man, I've always wanted to put razor blades in a tape. And I was like, what if we stamped all of the razor blades with the band name and then wrapped them in obituaries from the newspaper? So I went out and bought a bunch of newspapers, got a bunch of razor blades, stamped the name Lech on each razor blade, wrapped them in obituaries, tossed them in each tape. Somebody opens one of those tapes after they buy it at the show, they all sold out in the one show we played.
Hell yeah. This is the type of stuff that doesn't happen at quote unquote non-DIY shows or you know what I mean? The razor blade thing is something that is just super cool. And then it just becomes a thing where it's oh, that who would have thought of that? But it's because we sit around and we think how can we get our name out there to 10 people, 15 people, so that a way we can sell something. Exactly. So that a way we can pay for gas to get back to the house or the next show or a recording or practice space or whatever. But yeah, sometimes the necessity of the idea is what creates some of the coolest ideas, and it becomes a hook to just who would have thought?
Yeah.
And so it's a simple idea, but
super simple, took no
who
time.
Would have thought?
Yeah. And so
y'all thought of it.
So yeah, we played this one show. We had some kind of theatrics. Tad had a gas can full of water that he was throwing on the audience and lighting matches and throwing them at them. That show was also awesome. I've got some photos from it, but it was Wiccans, Breakout. Oh, who else played that? Wiccans and Breakout, though. I mean, those two alone.
Sure.
If you're not familiar with Wiccans, check them out. Denton royalty that moved to Austin. And if you're familiar with Andrew Savage, he was one of the founding members before he broke off to do Parquet Courts. Yeah. And then Adam, who plays in Wiccans, he's a vocalist. He's done so many cool bands over the years. I actually met him at the first Heinous Genetics show I played.
There you go.
So had known him for a while.
Circle back.
Yeah. At 1919. It's all connected. Breakout, I'm not sure if they're still active, but one of the coolest oi influenced bands, but I wouldn't call them hardcore, I wouldn't call them punk. They're into all kinds of cool stuff. So and I'm trying to remember who else was on that show. There were a bunch of homies on it. But yeah, so did that, and then we played that one show, and we never played another show after that. That was it. It was a great show. We got a great reaction. We sold all the tapes, and we called it a day.
Thank you. Good night.
Mysterious Guy hardcore.
Out on a high note.
Yeah. And then Human Error. after they recorded their LP with only like 1 to 2 original members in the band, they kind of went on hiatus, and then we got asked to do a Beyond the Wasteland like original lineup show, so we did that, and we played I think in 2015 and 2016. In 2015 we played with Gatecreeper as their first time coming through, and so we got back together to play with them. Now they're like huge. It was like
Right.
a few kids there. They were awesome. Like when I saw their coming, I was like, hey, we should try and get on this. I'm like, oh well, people have been asking us. I was like, all right, cool. We did that. 2016 we played again. Some stuff came up and we were just like, hey, let's just put it to bed. Never again. And then after that, I didn't play music until 2020 when I got asked to join Unspell.
And now you're just kind of free agent, free balling.
I've got a project
Couple
in
projects.
the works. With Brian from Unspell. He and I are working with our friend Adam.
Love that. So I'll quickly go through like my musical rundown, and then we'll get to some violence. I started playing guitar because I played a lot of sports, and then I broke my finger, and I needed something to do because I was kind of driving myself nuts. And my parents bought me a guitar when I was like 8, and it was a classical guitar that just kind of sat in the closet. So broke my finger, my index finger on my left hand, which is kind of counterintuitive. You kind of need fingers to play the guitar, but I taught myself how to play guitar, restrung that classical guitar with steel strings, learned how to tune a guitar, read a few interviews from Kurt Cobain about learning how he played the guitar or how he learned to play the guitar. And in my mind, I was like, I can do this. And basically just started listening to Nirvana, half Nirvana and half like Jesus worship songs, because part of the deal of like me growing up in a Christian household and playing the guitar was like, oh, I'm a built-in like praise and worship kid now. So I did that. A lot of my performative like experience comes from the fact that I was ordained and licensed as a minister when I was 14 or 15 years old. My dad was also a minister, and so we would kind of come as a package deal. He was the youth pastor who had a youth who could play music for the youth, and so played almost every Wednesday, Sunday, in any type of like church setting you can think of, mostly guitar. But all throughout that time that I was in high school, I also played trombone, and so got a lot of theory and different performance experience in that performative setting, and actually got a scholarship to go play music at Dallas Baptist University after high school. So I have a lot of like background music experience that's not like super like in performative, like punk hardcore. That didn't come till later for me.
Did you ever play in a ska band since you played trombone? The world needs to know.
I tried to form a ska band. It just was on the like back end of like that third wave. So it was like, come on guys, we can do it. And then it was like, we probably played like 3 or 4 like practices. And then we realized that like, it's really hard to play in a ska band.
Growing up, ska was huge.
Sure.
Like some of my first like local shows were ska shows.
So, speaking of ska and growing up, the vocalist in our band, Jordan, Unspell, he sent me he was going through, he's been on a kick of like trying to find some of his old, band shirts, because he's been on like a big resale kick lately, and he's got a ton of great stuff. But as he was going through some of his stuff, he sent me a flyer for a show that he went to in high school. And, we actually went to the same show at the exact same time, even though we didn't know each other. It was Saturday, October 2nd. I believe this was the year of 2000. It was at Holiday Roller Rink in Northeast Fort Worth.
Was that Haltom City?
Yes, that's correct.
Ooh, it's no longer there. It's actually a Birdville ISD like 4-H thing now.
So I'm gonna let you take a look at this. This is the same show that we were at the same time while we were in high school, but not knowing each other.
The W's, 5 Iron Frenzy. Oh God, I love some good Christian ska. The Insiders, Justin McRoberts.
Yeah. So I don't know if you remember the W's. They had one song. I don't know how they're top billing on this.
5 Iron Frenzy is the only band I recognize on there.
They should be headlining this tour. The W's at the time had a one-hit wonder on Christian radio called "You Are the Devil and the Devil Is Bad." It was like brum brum bum 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 bum. Like it was a really terrible, not even ska, but because they had horns in the band, it was like, oh, you're a ska band. But yeah, so
just a super quick aside to Holiday Roller Rink and Haltom City. Shout out to Haltom City Hardcore from like the 90s. But apparently in the late 90s, Bane played at Holiday Roller Rink. I have heard stories. There are some crazy Haltom City stories, but we can save that for another episode.
Yeah, in high school, I was into the ska, particularly the Christian ska.
Pick it up.
Yeah. So after, like in high school, I tried to have this band. We were called No Fun Intended because of the pun.
Punny.
No Fun Intended, or NFI, because it was like AFI, NFI. So also Newfound Glory, NFG, NFI. I was super into like that whole thing because like I thought that was really cool. Like you could go by a name or you could go by an acronym. Both of them are cool.
The early 2000s, you either put a "the" in front of it, numbers at the end, or an acronym.
Correct. So I thought it was so clever as a senior in high school coming up with this No Fun Intended kind of like punkish name, NFI. We played one show. It was a Buzz Oven Battle of the Bands. And I brought 2 guitars with me. And for some reason they had us like, it was like backstage was outside. And so I had both of my guitars just sitting outside for like several hours. And then like when it came my time to play, I brought them from outside to a very air conditioned stage. And so strings, I popped so many strings. I think I popped 2 on the first one and I was like, I brought a second guitar, and then brought up my second guitar. And then on like the first chord, I broke like 2 on those, and I was like, there's just no way I can finish this. So it was a really embarrassing, hard time. That was my like first quote unquote non-Jesus performance. It was at the Rec Room.
R.I.P.
Yeah, it was like a late afternoon show. And so that was kind of weird and threw me off for a while. But then after that, I kind of just started trying to like write songs. And I was working with a good friend of mine at the time, and we would just kind of like float ideas back and forth. I was really like, well, what if we did this? What if we did this? What if we did this? The first band I was ever in that kind of like played shows out and about was called Beauregard. They were kind of like a Baroque, very like, you had to dress up to be on stage, like suits and like
again mid 2000s.
Yeah,
like
it was very like
Killers and the Strokes,
Arcade Fire.
And,
yeah, like if you had to like have a vest and
I love it.
a weird like maybe like a ukulele and everything else. But so yeah, that was Beauregard. They were Le Beauregard Chic. That was a fun band. We got a chance to play a lot of cool shows in and around the area. A lot of Denton shows, a lot of Dallas shows. I was still making my own music at the time. And then after that, I was in another group called Titan Moon, which was a local group in the area that got a few shows here and there. We played with a lot of, local bands.
What years was Titan Moon around?
So Titan Moon was, let's see, it's 2024. So I would say 2007, 2008 kind of.
Okay.
Because Truman, my son, was born in 2008, and that was when we were in Japan.
Okay.
So I would say like maybe 2006, 7, and 8.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
Because like 2010, 2011, there was another local band called either Titan Moon or Moon Titan.
They were called the Moon Titan.
Well, this was my roommate at the time. It was 2 members of Power Trip that it was like sleep influence stuff, and they played a handful of shows.
Yeah. Interesting. So the lead singer for that Project Titan Moon, his name is Tyler. He's now living, I think, in New York, and he is a pretty kind of famous-ish artist. And
Awesome.
One of his paintings is hanging up in Gusto's. So if you ever go to Gusto's and you see a painting of Andy Warhol eating a hamburger, Tyler, the lead singer of that project, painted that. That was probably the craziest, zaniest time I've ever had in playing and making music. Made 2 records with them. Got a chance to tour all around the world. Got a chance to play in Pakistan. We visited Bahrain, Dubai, China.
How did you leave Pakistan? Was it with an escort?
That's correct. So this is 2008, right after Truman had been born. We are in Pakistan, and this is also like September-ish, late September-ish. And during this time, there was a international program called Daniel Pearl World Music Days, and we got in contact with them. Basically, they wanted to hold concerts all around the world in memory of this journalist who had been captured and killed by the Taliban. His name was Daniel Pearl. And so his mom set up this thing. And so we thought, what better way to commemorate Daniel Pearl's life than playing a show in Pakistan, a few years removed from that event and from the terrorist events of 9/11. So we thought maybe that would be cool. And so we kind of advertised it a little bit, but not really. When we went to Pakistan, we had sold our shows to Paul T and MTV Pakistan. So any of our live shows were actually at hotel ballrooms, and it was filmed by MTV and then broadcast simulcast around like all of their channels there. But the last show we were supposed to have was at a different hotel a little bit north. And so the night before that show, we were just kind of sleeping in our beds, and we had government security and escorts at that time. And we just get knock on the door. It's the middle of the night. And the head of security is like, hey, you guys have to pack everything you have and come with us right now. We're like, why? He's like, there's a bomb threat that's been called against the show that you guys are performing at, and the government doesn't want to have anything to do with that or have any of like your blood on our hands. So we need to get you out of here as soon as possible. So literally we had like 30 minutes to get everything we brought with us. And then we got in the back of these military trucks, and we were legit like military escort, guns, back of a military truck, like guys with like AKs, full body armor, like all of it. And already in a third world country, there are no traffic signals, lights, rules. People are just honking. They're honking to let you know they're coming. They're not honking to let you know to get out the way. So everything is just beep, 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 beep. Well, when these guys came and got us, we were just on sidewalks. We were just getting to the airport, fastest I've ever been anywhere. So we got to the airport, and when we got there, no clearing customs, no going through security, no waiting in any lines, directly to the airfield on this truck, into an airplane, into first class.
Damn, flying in style.
I'd never flown first class before. And they were like, yeah, we love you, but you gotta leave now. So we immediately got out of Pakistan and flew into Dubai like 4 days early. And that was probably one of the most intense times that we had, because just as a band, we just had all this uncertainty. We had a show that we knew was going to bring us money that we're missing out on. We had reservations in Dubai that were not for another 4 days. So how do you just like immediately overnight just get a place to stay in another country? We also have visas and stuff like that have certain dates on them. So we just can't just like go from country to country like this without like having some blowback. So it was a very intense time for all of us. I'd never thought in a million years that a terrorist would call a bomb attack on one of our shows. No. But again, you're in Pakistan, things happen. But I'm still friends with Zishan Haider, the guy that was the head of security that got us out of the country that day. We're still friends on Facebook. We keep in contact. He's a very cool, interesting person with a lot of stories. Got the real story of like how Pakistanis live, what life is like in Pakistan from him, from a person in Pakistan. So anytime I hear anything on the news, I give it just 2 farts of a consideration. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because that's one thing I will say, that if you've never traveled outside of the United States, if you've never traveled outside of Texas, you as a person are doing yourself a disservice, especially if you have the ability to do so. If you're physically able to do so, if you're financially able to do so, get out of your state, get out of your country, and see how other people are living, because that's the only way that you're going to get the real like truth on what's going on in some of these places. So yeah, that was a great time. Titan Moon. We, like I said, we spent about 2.5, 3 weeks in Japan at the end of that tour, made some lifelong friends. I never thought I'd be able to say that I've had visited Tokyo, had played rock and roll in Japan, that I have friends in Japan, and all of that. That it was a dream come true. The second we landed in Japan, I gave the lead singer of the band a big hug, because like we were not on good terms at that time. We had just gone through some fist fighting in Dubai, again with the violence. But you know, it was one of those things where like you get to Japan and it's just like your whole body is vibrating from just like the fact that you're there. So after Titan Moon, I put together a project of my own called Sons of Sierra. It was like a roots rock inspired band. Very, very much so inspired by like Alabama Shakes and Delta Spirit and kind of like the Walkmen, almost like kind of like a roots rock, garage rock, like the Strokes but like more along the lines of like Texas and like Hispanic inspired music. Sierra was my grandfather who had passed away. At that time, he was my only grandparent that passed away. Maximo Sierra, that was his last name. It's my mom's maiden name. So that's kind of where the name came from, Sons of Sierra. Again, acronym SOS. Thought that was cool. We had a few shows, played Arts Goggle, got the opportunity to share the stage with Leon Bridges before Leon Bridges became who he was.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out Leon. We played together at Lola's, RIP. Yeah, I know, so many RIPs this episode. After Sons of Sierra, I was in a project called Woes. Initially, it was called Ill Smiths. We kind of like played with the name Will Smith and the fact that we like were the Smiths inspired. It legit was a joke. We started with a bass player that had never played bass before. It was just something that we wanted to do one summer that started out as a project, and it turned into 6-7 years of just playing music together. We got a chance to make an EP with Jorts Richardson, local hero, Grammy Award winning producer, mixer, master engineer.
Fantastic drummer.
Yeah, and I'm just an amazing drummer. If you've ever heard the Woes EP, Get Your Life, he is the drummer on that EP, and he nailed every single one of those songs in one take. No lie, no exaggeration, legit set up the drums, heard the song once or twice and just nailed it. We get so many compliments on that EP, and it is strictly just due to Jorts seeing what we were doing at the time and just really helping us shape that EP. A couple of those songs live on The Orange Years. It's a documentary about Nickelodeon, not the bad documentary about Nickelodeon. It's a little bit older. It's a lot more lighthearted, but you can hear some of our songs on that documentary. We changed our name from Ill Smiths to Woes because we kept on getting hit up by this promoter in Oklahoma that thought we were an Italian Smiths cover band. So we were like, this is
Mamma mia.
Mamma mia, the Ill Smiths are coming. But so we just thought like, if we're going to continue to play music and it was going to be like something that was, you know, a thing, we should change our name. I know he keeps on coming back up, but Drake had a song at the time. I was running through the six with my woes, and like literally we just took that part and made woes a thing. And it was also kind of like sad boy click era, so it was like worries, problems. We thought like, what a cool name just to call your name like Problems. So woes was a thing. And then after woes, I started Unspell. And that's kind of where we are today. We put out, again, got an opportunity to work with a Grammy Award winning producer, Alex Bohr, whenever we recorded that EP in John Congleton's studio in Dallas. Jorts, again, helped out a little bit with the project by mastering a single for us. I would also be remiss to say anything that I've ever put out has only and ever been mastered by Danny Kalb out in California. That guy is not only a genius when it comes to mastering music, he's just the sweetest, kindest person whenever it comes to like working with anybody on a budget. He's worked with Karen O, he's worked with Beck, he's worked with like, I mean, you name it, the royalty of music, and yet still has time to master projects like Woes and Unspell and anything that, you know, is connected to Jorts mainly. Jorts is the link there. And so, yeah, I humble brag about this all the time, but like Woes was produced by a Grammy Award winning producer and mastered by a Grammy Award winning producer. as was Unspell. Our EP was recorded by someone who won a Grammy, Alex Bohr. It was mastered by Danny Kalb, who's someone who's won a Grammy. The single Obscurate was mastered by George, someone who's won a Grammy. So yes, we are DIY. Yes, we are punk. Yes, we are hardcore. Yes, we are all these things. But we also have friends that care about us that just happen to also be in the business and that are amazing. So anything that I've ever done has always been touched by someone that is just, great and awesome. And I wouldn't be as proud of anything that I've done musically had it not been for those people. So big shout out to Alex and to Danny and to Jorts for that. So I think we're running a little bit short on time, so maybe we'll come back and do Violence later. Or do you want to do Violence and skip the UFC recap? Or
I'll let you choose on that one.
Okay, let's come back. And I think we have a lot more to talk about when it comes to Violence between the two of us. So let's make that a third part of this introduction.
We're just going to fight in the next episode.
Yeah, the next one we're going to fight 3 5-minute rounds, UFC style. So let's talk a little bit about UFC 300. We want to talk, this kind of became more music heavy this episode, but we wanted to kind of get in our personal ties to violence. One of my personal ties to violence is the fact that I am a UFC Ultimate Fighting Champion mega fan. For the past 10 years, I would say, a solid 10 years, I've legit seen every event. I've legit watched every Contender series, every Ultimate Fighter series. It is a ritual in my house. My children, my wife, anyone that knows me knows that Saturday nights equal UFC.
Saturday night fights.
Yeah, Saturday nights equal fight night. So my kids have grown up with it. It's so much a part of my life that I sometimes forget that the UFC is kind of shocking to some people. Yesterday we were, hanging out with some friends and kids around the same age of my kids. And I didn't even think about it. I was just like, UFC's on, I put it on TV, and these kids' face when they see just like the blood, they're just like, and it's just like, so violence is a big part of my life. Obviously weekly competitive violence is a big part of my life. I'm a huge fan of MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, just that whole thing. And we had a huge event happen. It is UFC 300. And so if you're not familiar with the UFC, they've been around for about 30 years now. They started out kind of as a mom and pop company, and they really have grown themselves into just about, I would say in the same echelon as the NFL or the NBA. They are the creme de la creme of fighting when it comes to competitive fighting. They've made a name so much of themselves that they've crossed over into boxing. One of their greatest stars and competitors, Conor McGregor, had a chance to step over and fight Floyd Mayweather in a sanctioned boxing match. So the UFC is legit. It's here. It's going to be here for quite some time. They've got multi-year deals with ESPN and other companies. They're probably going to be actually with Netflix or Hulu, I believe. I believe they're going to be testing the waters with a streaming service like that after this contract is run up. So they are not going anywhere. But UFC 300 just happened 2 weeks ago. It is the 300th event that they put on. And so 100 was a huge celebration, 200 was a huge celebration, but 300 was an even bigger celebration. Each year it gets bigger and bigger. They had, I think, 14 fights on the card, and every single one of those fights, I believe, could have headlined its own individual card. Yeah. They just had so many stars. But the two big events that I kind of wanted to talk about and the takeaways from this are the two events that I would say really crossed over into sports in general. The first one of those events was the fight between Max Holloway and, hold on one second, it's been 2 weeks now. Who did he fight? Sorry.
And just for the listeners out there, I am a casual UFC watcher. Rene is the guy who knows everything here, so I'm here to ask questions, chime in with the things I do know. Again, casual enjoyer. I love watching it, but Rene is the one who's knowledgeable. So,
just jogging my memory, Max Holloway fought Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje was the holder of a belt called the BMF belt. This belt was created a few years ago so that Nick Diaz could fight for a title, because he never got a chance to actually really fight for a belt, even though he is probably regarded as one of the most heavily fan favorite fighters and also probably one of the most skilled boxers that has ever fought in the UFC. He's had kind of some weird beats in his life where Conor McGregor was kind of streaking at the time that he was kind of coming into his prime. And so they kind of crossed paths twice. He is what they call the baddest motherfucker. And so they came up with the belt to kind of allow him to compete for that belt. Unfortunately, he didn't win that belt. Jorge Masvidal did. And Jorge Masvidal took that belt from him. And then after Jorge retired, they had another fight between Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. And then Dustin Poirier took the belt. So now Dustin Poirier is kind of defending this belt against Max Holloway. Max Holloway is a little bit older than Justin Gaethje. Max Holloway has been in the UFC a lot longer than Justin Gaethje. Max Holloway has had an actual belt, a championship belt in his weight class. He is when you talk about fan favorites, Max Holloway is one of the greatest. He's a Hawaiian fighter. His nickname is Blessed. Everything about his life, he is positive. He's blessed. And so it's always fun to watch someone that is, he lets his fighting talk for him. He's not a trash talker, but he is definitely one of those guys where when he's in the ring, you just don't ever, you don't want to be across from him. One of my favorite Max Holloway moments is he's boxing somebody, and it's in the, sometimes during the pandemic, they would fight in the Apex in Las Vegas with no crowd. And so that came up with this whole dynamic where you could hear the coaches coaching, you could hear the fighters talking trash to one another, and the fighters could hear the commentators. So the commentators were talking about how great Max Holloway is as a boxer. As he's boxing somebody, he heard this. I think it was Dominique Cruz that said he's one of the greatest boxers in the UFC. He turned to look at the commentators and said, I am the greatest boxer in the UFC. As he's saying this, the guy tries to hit him. He dodges the punch and then boom, hits the guy. So this guy is just amazing. The fight that we saw with Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje for 5 rounds was just nothing but pure violence. They legit are just two of the competitors. They don't run from conflict. They stand in the middle. They fight each other. If it goes down to the ground, they're looking for submissions. Neither of them are wasting time. Neither of them are trying to look for a way out. Both of these fighters are looking to end the other person, and in the most respectful way possible. They're both just great fighters. The thing that was amazing about this fight is that there was 5 5-minute rounds. Up until the 5th round, in my opinion, it was pretty even. You didn't really know. Max had pretty much handled it, but it was one of those things where it hadn't been definitive. The 5th round, Max really dominated it, and you could tell, okay, Max is going to win this. But he did not coast. He, in the last 10 seconds, motions to Justin Gaethje, says, you meet me right here in the middle of the octagon. He invites the person that holds the belt as the baddest motherfucker in the world and says, yes, we've just beat the shit out of each other for 24 minutes and 50 seconds. But this last 10 seconds, I want it right here in the middle of the ring. You don't back up. I'm not going to back up. And we're just going to throw until somebody falls. And Justin obliged. And for the last 10 seconds, they met each other in the middle of the ring. And with 1 second left on the clock, Max Holloway connects and folded Justin Gaethje. And then as soon as Justin Gaethje fell over in front of him, Max Holloway stepped over, almost like Allen Iverson stepped over Tai Lu. It was just the most beautifully violent thing that I've probably ever seen in quite some time. And it was so moving that it was it made Sports Center, it made all of these things, because it was Babe Ruth. Yeah. He literally pointed to the stands and knocked that home run out. And it was watching it in real time with my family. My wife was scared for Justin Gaethje because of how he fell. Yeah, it was nasty. Yeah, I mean, that knockout was just one of the most crazy. I'm shaking thinking about it right now because I'm just so excited about reliving that moment. So big props to Max Holloway. He won with a big knockout, and with 1 second to go, it was probably one of the coolest things that I've ever seen in MMA history and UFC history. Not to mention the fact that this card is just full of just killers, knockouts, finishes that we've seen. However, the night didn't end there. The very last fight of the night was a light heavyweight championship fight between Alex Pereira and Jamal Hill. Now, Alex Pereira is a newer fighter to the UFC.
Jim Weed's got him.
Yeah, I got a little burpee. Alex Pereira is a Brazilian. He's a newer fighter to the UFC. I'll probably wrap up in about 5 minutes or so. He is an interesting character in his own right because he comes from the kickboxing world. He fought Israel Adesanya in kickboxing, who, if you are unfamiliar with Israel Adesanya, he's probably, after Conor McGregor left the UFC or has gone on his hiatus from the UFC, Israel is probably the most popular, most entertaining, and probably most recognizable star from the UFC. He went on this wild streak of just being undefeated. He captured the belt in his weight class very quickly. He fights with style. His nickname is the Last Style Bender. He's one of those guys that on the walkout, he'll have a face mask and a dance routine. He brings like the showmanship to it all.
I love the theatrics. I'm a sucker for it.
So previous to both of them being in the UFC, they both were in a kickboxing league, and Alex Pereira knocked out Israel Adesanya in kickboxing. And so the storyline is the only person that's ever beat Israel Adesanya, or the only person that's ever knocked out Israel Adesanya, is a kickboxer. And Israel left that behind, had a good 4-year run in the UFC, but all this while, Alex Pereira, in the background of his mind, is seeing this and saying, wait a minute, I've beat this guy, beat him twice, knocked him out, beat him twice. Let me go over here into the UFC and chase him. So that's what he does. He comes over to the UFC and he begins chasing Israel Adesanya. And it is one of those things where like 3 or 4 fights in, you recognize that this kid is different. He is not like just a regular kid. And he finally gets his chance to fight Israel Adesanya. Well, their first match in the UFC, he straight up and down knocks out Israel Adesanya and takes his belt from him, which is amazing, crazy. You know, it was a crazy fight. It was one of those times where it was like, it was sad because for me, because I was such a huge Adesanya homer, I've seen him just like dominate in so many fights that it was just like, it was sad to see him go down that way. They fought again in a rematch, and Israel Adesanya rope-a-doped him. And if you're unfamiliar with the rope-a-dope term, basically you get hit and you kind of play like you're stunned or, knocked out a little bit. But in reality, you're not. You're allowing that opponent to kind of come after you with reckless abandon. And usually when they think that you're stunned, their guard gets let down a little bit and you can kind of crack him. So that's what he did. He pretended that he was stunned. And as Alex Pereira came in to knock him out, Israel just knocked him out. So they're 1-1 in the UFC. But after that fight, Alex Pereira said, I'm done in this weight class because it was 185. And he is a guy that walks around about 225. So he was cutting 45, 50 pounds just to go down, just to chase Israel Adesanya. That's Israel's natural weight. He walks around at 185. So now he moved up to light heavyweight, which is 205. So he's still cutting about 20 pounds to get there, but it's not as hard on his body. Well, 2 fights into light heavyweight, he got the belt there too. So UFC 300 comes around. He's defending his belt against Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill has actually won the belt in the light heavyweight division before, but he hurt himself playing basketball during International Fight Week last year. He hurt his knee. And so embarrassingly, he went ahead and gave the belt back because he had won it, but then he had hurt himself playing basketball. And so he gave the belt back. And so the belt was up. And then, so now he's coming back off of this injury and he thinks, hey, I've never been beat for my belt. Let me go get my belt back, which sets up this clash of these two titans at UFC 300, Alex Pereira, Jamal Hill. So the very first round, it's pretty indicative that Alex does not respect Jamal Hill or his power. Basically what happens is you have a few exchanges, but a couple of minutes into the fight, 3 minutes into the fight, Jamal Hill kicks Alex in the groin. You can hear the cut pop. Now, in the UFC, if someone gets hit in the groin, they automatically call timeout. You are afforded up to 5 minutes to recover. There's no coaching allowed during this time. It's basically just a general time for you to recover. My wife hates it. She thinks it's the worst, most, pansy move in sports, basically. Like, she's like, I gave birth to 4 children. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, no drugs. You guys can get kicked in the nuts. I've tried to explain to her, it's just one of those things. We don't experience periods. They don't experience the ball tap. So the ball tap can bring you to your knees. It is involuntary. It will hurt all the way up into your stomach. So yes. So anyways, Alex gets popped. He gets hit in the groin. Herb Dean, the ref, comes to stop. And as he reaches in to stop, without even looking out of his peripheral vision, Alex grabs his hand, pushes it away, and says, "No, thank you. I don't want to call timeout. I don't want this 5-minute rest. Whatever just happened in my groin is fine." So it's a very cool, like, smooth assassin. Like, he didn't even turn his head. His eyes are on his opponent the entire time. The ref's hand comes in and his peripherals, he grabs his hand and pushes it away. And then in the next 10 seconds, he moves in and delivers a few blows and knocks Jamal Hill out. So it is a very just definitive victory. There's a couple of people that have said since this fight has happened that Jamal Hill was not ready because he thought that timeout had been called. All of that's BS. Jamal Hill said that he was cleared by a doctor Sunday, the day after he got knocked out. He said he was never knocked out. It's one of those things where it's like, ego's a bitch. You know what I mean? Like, we literally have video proof of your eyes rolling in the back of your head as you're falling down to the ground, not once, but twice. And even if the referee did not stop it, there was literally nothing that you could have done to prevent the onslaught of blows that was happening to you at the time. So I am thankful to Herb Dean because Jamal Hill lives to fight another day and is not brain dead. But Jamal Hill really probably should, I would say, go ahead and eat this one, because there's no denying the fact that he was knocked out. I don't care that you found a doctor to clear you the next day. That doctor probably is a quack. Because all you have to do is show him the video of you getting knocked out, and the doctor would be like, "Oh yeah, you were knocked out." Because the second that he got hit to the head with that left hook, he was falling backwards, and you can see his eyes legit rolling in the back of his head. And then he got hit a couple more times, and it happened again. So since then, we've had kind of a little bit of a controversial opinion when it comes to, I thought, he called timeout, so I stopped my fighting stance or whatever. I've watched it several times since then. None of that happened. The other thing is, in combat sports, protect yourself at all times. I mean, it's like the number one thing in fighting is protect yourself at all times. If the referee isn't there in the middle of you guys, you got to protect yourselves. I mean, I've seen Floyd Mayweather use it to his advantage, where a referee is kind of like on the fence of calling timeout, but because he's not fast enough and the guy let his guard down, Floyd just went ahead and sucker punched him and knocked him out. But it was like these things, like, you're in the ring, you protect yourself at all times. So UFC 300 was a great event. We got to see, just looking back at some of these names, Alex Pereira defeated Jamal Hill with that great knockout in the first round. Zhang Weili and Yao Shannan, they're 2 Chinese fighters. That I wanted to mention that because that was one of the first times in the UFC where I've seen a Chinese fighter versus a Chinese fighter. In particular, a women's Chinese champion versus a women's Chinese champion. China loves sports. They love the UFC. They have some terrific champions. And so I thought that was such a cool thing, because we are ignorant because we're not Chinese. We're not, super political and super high up as far as what is going on over there. We just know what we know from what media tells us or from what other people tell us. But they have a great thing going with their MMA program. We see it in their women's championships. They've got some great fighters, and that was a great fight. So I just wanted to shout out. That was one of the first times I've seen China versus China in the UFC, and really kind of spotlight and highlight the fact that, yes, no matter what's going on in the world, that's one of the cool things about Dana White is like, yeah, some people give him crap. He's a Trump supporter or X, Y, and Z, but like he, number one, lets any fighter say whatever they want, and whether you agree with it or not, that is the First Amendment. And
Trump
it's one
supporter,
of those things,
1A,
so it is cool to hear people that are Ukrainian ask people that for some understanding when it comes to that. People that are from Russia, people that are from China, people that are from Korea, people that are from these places that we see that are like quote unquote the boogeyman.
Yep.
There are humans that live in these countries. There are people that are working hard towards a goal, and they're made it past whatever those boundaries are. So that was
absolutely.
that was a cool thing to see. Shout out to Max Holloway for retaining that BMF belt. He's changed the name from baddest motherfucker to blessed man forever. So very cool. So UFC 300, thank you very much for the entertaining times. There was a fight last night. It was okay. The Alexander Pantoja fight was the headlining fight. They went 5 rounds. Alexander Pantoja looked pretty definitive. He did get caught a few times, but he retained the belt. It's pretty good. We have some fights to look forward to coming up. We've got next week one of my favorite fighters, Derek Lewis, is fighting. He is from Houston, Texas. He is a heavyweight fighter, and he's had some of the most entertaining fights. He is the fighter that one time he fought, he won, got a knockout. It was in the first round, I think. He took his shorts off. And Joe Rogan says, he was like, "Why'd you take your shorts off?" And he said, "My balls was hot." So
That's
he's
a good reason.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that he doesn't really like to work out. He doesn't really like to train. He thinks that Brazilian jiu-jitsu is a myth. He says you just stand up. So he loses a lot of these fights.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that, like, if he put it all together, he probably could be the best, but he likes to eat churches. He likes to swang and bang, and he likes his, so a lot of good stuff to look forward to. The next episode, we are going to specifically delve into our personal relationships with violence. I've got a couple of fight stories. I know Parker's got a couple of fight stories. We both play punk and hardcore music, so we've got a couple of show fight stories for you. We're going to recap the Derek Lewis fight, but we're also going to review the movie Roadhouse. Conor McGregor was mentioned earlier in the episode, and he has made his acting debut in Roadhouse. And so we're going to review that. We're going to talk about, is he good? Is he not good? What happened with Jake Gyllenhaal? Does he die at the end? What's
Jake
going
Gyllenhaal,
on here?
what a hunk.
So, yes. So thank you so much for being with us. You have been with us on another episode of Breakfast of Champions. Thank you, Parker, for bringing in the Dreamboat Donuts. Please go visit those guys any and every chance you get. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I got nothing.
All right. So you heard more about our musical lives, our musical journeys. You're going to hear more and more about what we like breakfast-wise. We're going to get into some celebrity chefs. We're going to have some guests coming through. Maybe some members of bands that we've been in that we've talked about in this episode. So just be on the lookout for more episodes. We're going to be doing this weekly, and we just thank you for being with us. Hope you guys have a great day. Eat your breakfast.
Bye.